to answer the questions. Thank you.
That slide, if I may begin with your excellent comments. I agree with all of them. And I'm going to start, though, with the Washington Consensus. This is a slide which draws on some of the figures and shows how Africa and Latin America have suffered under the rule of the Washington Consensus and the domination of the Bretton Woods institutions. In the 20 years, 1960 to 1980, it gives the total growth per capita over that 20-year period in Latin America, 80%. In 1980 to 2000, when the Washington Consensus was ruling, if you want a loan from the World Bank or the IMF, you have to get agree to the Washington Consensus, a miserable 9% only growth. Not per year, over 20 years. It's not an average per year, it's the total. Africa, even more stringent, 36% before 1980, minus 15%. They were poorer at the end of 2000 than they were in 1980. And if you look at the statistics, there's still something like 30 countries in Africa that are poorer today than they were before, and largely, in our view, my view, the Washington Consensus. Those who want to follow this, we quote some very interesting reports, including, so the newly emerging consensus is that IMF programs hurt economic growth. That's by a Princeton American economist who reviewed a whole range of studies of the Washington Consensus. But let's look forward. The Deputy Prime Minister, former Deputy Prime Minister, asked us, what could we do? Well, forgive me if I make suggestions what I think Thailand could do. First, I don't know exactly how much your experience of 97 to 99 has been written up. To me, it is very exciting. When we talked to the Deputy Director General of the board this morning, she was telling us about how the buildup of reserves after 97 to 99 and the fact that you'd had the pessimistic pressures of the IMF then had set you up to say never again, and we will have a stimulus program using the resources built up. I think the write-up of that experience could be very useful. I don't yet know how much ESCAP has written up this experience. Perhaps it has, but certainly it's not known that clearly in a development research institute like my own in Sussex, let alone, I suspect, in most American universities, let alone in Washington, in the bank, and so forth. I think that experience for all the countries in Asia would be very good to write up. I think the proposals for the future and documenting your experience even now, of which we have seen the ESCAP report for 2009, has made a beginning on how the countries in Asia have slowed growth. But it's the one region in the world which has not gone into negative growth, slower growth. That is incredibly powerful experience. Our project of the UN would say these ideas ought to be widely known in Latin. I don't know why we're coming to Asia to tell you. I would much sooner, sir, if you went to Latin America and just simply said, let me tell you Thai experience, and or other countries, but there should be a delegation. But again, everyone in Europe and the US now is aware of China, but China, with all respect, is only part of this great diversity and differences of Asian experience. So I think your your experience? Secondly, the first, the first, second, and perhaps the third UN from Asia must pressure for the IMF reform of paradigm. At the G20 in April, there was talk of we must have reform of the IMF. But what was meant was, do we have 2 or 3 African board members? That won't change the structure very much. The British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, the Deputy Managing Director of the World Bank, both said we need a shift of paradigm. But I didn't see it coming out of the meeting. As you say, Stiglitz and the President of the GA organized a very good meeting. I'm embarrassed to tell you that only one British newspaper carried any report at all. Actually, there were 2. The Financial Times mostly had a report of the meeting, why it was dominated by Chavez of Venezuela and so forth. They didn't take seriously the proposals, as you say, which had come out of Stiglitz. It's tragedy, and I hope Thailand can use its influence regionally as well as in the UN to bring a change in this, because the world really depends on a much broader understanding of these issues. Sorry, Louis, I've got... Yes. It is an interesting report, this year's 2009 Human Development Report on Migration. And it has applied the pure approach of human development, expanding choices and strengthening capabilities to the set of issues around migration. In doing this, it has come up with politically some very unpleasant ideas, certainly for many European countries. I don't know enough about the Thai or the Asian situation, how much the internal migration issues are seen as problems or as great strengths, as opportunities. But I liked the report because it was challenging thinking in terms of, if for those of us who are passionately committed to human development, the ideas that grew out of Asia, Amartya Sen and Mahbub al-Haq, that those ideas come out with actions that are very different from what is politically feasible at the moment. Although the world of neoliberal economics has for long said there ought to be free migration. If you're going to have free movements of capital, then you